Hello, friends, and welcome to this kickoff installment of the Gene Keys program. I'm so excited to be bringing this to you. It has already, even just in the preparing for this first little bit, has already opened up deeper and new contemplations inside my own process. And so for that, I am so grateful to even be creating this in the first place. And if you find even one morsel of value in these videos, in the contemplations that you have that are sparked through these conversations, win 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 win. So in this very first chunk, we are going to kind of set the stage and draw out some of the key concepts and premises and the foundation of how Gene Keys works. And that will give us a lot to contemplate before we ever even look at your profile. So not that we won't need your profile, we'll get there, but at first, when we're going to have this initial conversation, we're really just talking about, in general, how does the profile work? How does Gene Keys work? And so the first thing is to introduce a few vocab words that you may or may not already know. When you look at your profile, the little round bubbles on the profile are called spheres, and each sphere on the chart has a different meaning. So every single sphere along the path is a different piece of you coming into focus. So throughout each of these contemplations, we will together go through each of the spheres, what it means, and what specific things to look for in your world to see how you might be able to navigate yourself little by little into the life that feels best for you. The other thing that we're going to contemplate together are the pathways, and those are the lines that connect each of the little bubbles. Each individual line, each pathway is its own story as well. So we're going to tell the story of each of those pathways and talk about what's happening when you move between this sphere and this sphere. What does that mean? What is it for? How can we understand and integrate and embrace each of these different pathways inside of ourselves? And last but not least, the Gene Key number. So each of the different spheres on your chart has a number on it. For example, it might say 5.6. And if it says 5.6, that means that we are talking about Gene Key number 5. And whatever comes after the decimal is the line number that your Gene Key is specifically activating. And I'm intentionally not going to dive into how the lines get activated. If you're curious, let me know and I can put that in a different one of these chunks. So spheres, pathways, and lines are the three things that we will be contemplating together through this journey. Your specific Gene Keys and contemplating those specifics, that is something that I will leave to you. And in an upcoming session that we will have together, that is something that we can talk about. So if there are things that are hard to wrap your mind around, or your specific shadow of your evolution, or whatever the case is, it doesn't really make sense. I can't find this inside of myself. I don't know how to, I can't even see it. So how can I accept it? How can I embrace it when I don't even know where it is? So those would be the kinds of things that would be perfect for a conversation where maybe we can shine a little light on it together. So the golden path very, very basically talks about your natural organic flow through life and the natural rhythms that you're going to see when you are moving without resistance. So kind of the key to that is the you not having resistance part, and that's easier said than done. But think about that. Like basically what it's saying is like there's nothing really to build. There's only like getting out of your own way. So yeah, just that's one of those initial concepts to really sit with and see what your relationship is like to that. The other piece I want to lay in here is about divine timing. And divine timing, Oh, it's in everything. Everything happens according to divine timing in my beliefs. But so does self awareness and self illumination. And I do want to share my own belief. And again, I don't expect you to take this with blind faith, but rather contemplate your relationship with it. My belief says our self is visible to us only in divine timing, as all things happen in divine timing. So that means that, let's say as you're contemplating over these next few months, as in years, as you work with your Gene Keys chart, let's say there is a piece that like you just cannot see it. You're like, I don't get it. I've asked people, I still don't get it. Let's just say, one, I think we've all been there. I think that's a very relatable event that probably is, maybe going to happen to you at some point. And to two, when that happens, to ask yourself, could this be divine timing that I don't understand? Like, do I know it's true that I'm meant to understand this right now? Is that true? Can I know for sure that that's true? I believe that when we're working through a process of self-awareness, we understand ourselves as well as we're meant to in this moment. And any shortcomings that may leave us with are there through divine timing. It is not time to close that gap yet. It's not time to understand. It's time to not understand when we don't understand. So again, I would love to hear how that resonates with you. I am super excited about this next part, where we talk about the three frequencies and how the three frequencies, so when you look at your Gene Keys profile, the sphere has a number in it, and off to the side there are three words, and then the line name that you have activated in your profile. So that's on every single one of your Gene Keys. The three words that are over to the side, those are the process. Oh, so yummy and delicious. Those are the process of individuation that your soul specifically selected to work with. That's how I understand those three frequencies. In the Gene Keys in general, those three words represent three different frequencies that are inextricably tied together, and they show a path for whichever sphere we're talking about. So if it's the one at the top of your chart, we're talking about your life's work. The three frequencies show you the path of doing your life's work, the process of individuation. So the bottom word is always the shadow, and the shadow represents a challenge that you have in your DNA. And that comes up a lot when you read the Gene Keys books. It's like the programming of all of this exists within us. So like the challenge or the shadow that you have on your life's work, let's say, that is something that exists inside your DNA. And the reason I really hit that point home is because the shadow never goes away. Like, it's not like we're trying to move to the gift or the city and never ever experience the shadow again. Those challenges are going to be the themes of our life. So it's not about overcoming challenge so that you don't have challenges anymore. It really is about learning how to get good at that challenge such that the challenge isn't challenging. And that sounds great. That sounds like the challenge is over, but then it comes back in like a slightly sneakier form, in a slightly different way. The challenge returns and it's different, so your skills don't quite measure up, and that's uncomfortable. And now we're in shadow terrain because we're uncomfortable. But the primary tenet of Gene Keys is that every shadow contains a gift. Every shadow contains a gift. And so that means every time we find ourselves in darkness, that is where light is born. That's where gifts come from. So from the challenge comes the gift. So the answer to that first question at the bottom, where do gifts come from? They come from our challenges. And so you can just collapse that down, skip the middleman, and say challenges are gifts. Challenges are gifts. That is how the universe gifts us with things, is they provide challenge. And then from the gift actually, let's back up a step. The gift represents our creativity. So the part that I really love about creativity is that when you boil it down even further, what we're really talking about is choice. And so when we're talking about your gifts, we're really talking about your choices. So gift is a word that's thrown around a lot, and like spiritual superpowers or your spiritual gifts or whatever, however people talk about it. What if your gift is just your ability to choose light over dark? What if that is your gift? Is the ability to make this choice over this choice? Because when we're in our shadow, we don't have a choice. We just are the victim. We are challenged, and that's the end. But when we can meet challenge with creativity, we now are making a very empowered choice. We're granting ourselves the choice to be able to rise above whatever challenge might present itself. We have the choice to approach it with creativity instead of feeling like the victim of that challenge. And so where do gifts come from? They come from challenge. Where does your authentic self come from? Isn't this the $1 million question? It is for me, I know. Where does your authentic self come from? It comes from making the choices that align with who you really are. Making the choices that align with your nature, instead of allowing fear to sit in the driver's seat and hold the steering wheel. Which is to say, again, like challenge never goes away, which is also another way to say fear never goes away. And so, again, maybe it's not about kicking fear out of the car and, leaving them by the side of the road like you're worthless and we're not taking you with us anymore. Maybe it's like they get to ride in the back seat and they don't get to hold the steering wheel, and fear is still there, but we're driving. We're the creator. Life isn't happening to us. We're creating our life by the choices that we make. And so when we are empowering ourselves with choice, this is where our authentic self, it naturally emerges. So it's not a matter of ever like building your authentic self or like becoming someone else. It's only ever a matter of where are you navigating from? Is it from fear by default, or is it a choice? Is it a creative choice that says, I can have it however I want, and even if I have this challenge, I'm going to use it to pivot this way or to learn this new thing? Or there's so many different options when we're willing to see past life. Life shouldn't be challenging. Like, is that true? Should life be easy? Like, should there be no challenges? Should we only ever feel great and spectacular, and we should never feel like we're in the pit of despair and darkness? Like, should shadow completely go away? I would vote no, simply because that's where the light is born. That's where gifts come from. That's where growth happens. And so a lot of what we will look at in our Gene Keys profile is showing us the fears that we have to overcome. The shadow words, the 64 Gene Keys and the 64 shadows, they're really 64 different names for fear. Just like the 64 cities are 64 different names for love. It's all just the same thing. Are you in fear or are you in love? So we keep that in mind as we explore, as we contemplate, as we investigate, that the central premise of the Gene Keys and the work that we will do in this space is that every shadow contains a gift. So that means that struggle and challenge is no longer a dirty word. It's just not. It's where our gifts come from. It's where our ability to meet our authentic self comes from. The choices that we make in the face of challenge can be some of the most revealing moments of getting to meet our true self. Looking into our shadows to become more aware of them in our daily life is what this work is all about. So the rest of the videos that we have in this series will go through either the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, and the Pearl sequence. So those are 3 different clumps of your Gene Keys profile that each, again, have their own story, their own way that you can work with them, their own ways of where they're going to show up in your life, and very much the order that this is going to show up in your life, and kind of letting you know, for example, if you're wanting a relationship or you want more heart-to-heart connection, that comes from living out of your purpose. And the purpose, if you'll see, is at the bottom of the chart, because to get to your purpose, you have to unlock your genius, which is what you do in the activation sequence. And once your genius is unlocked, you can live from your purpose. And once you are living from your purpose, you'll meet the right people. You'll attract the right people who will help you open your heart, which is to say, they will trigger the shadow patterns that we find in your Venus sequence. And as you're presented with those shadow patterns that are in your Venus sequence, you'll have the choice. Do I want to be a victim of these shadows, or do I want to be creative with it? Do I want to see how have other people overcome this? What could I learn? What other resources might I need in order to support myself to heal in this way and be able to choose something other than victim mentality and giving up? So how do I get myself to be creative with this? Other times we may be looking for something closer to getting to have our dream career or find financial stability in the world. And these are tenets of the Pearl sequence. So the very last sequence yields prosperity. So when we're living in alignment with our organic, natural flow, in alignment with the natural pulse of the earth and all life on this earth, prosperity is our natural birthright. It is what naturally unfolds from living that way. But in order to live that way, first we have to awaken our genius through the activation sequence. We have to open our heart through the Venus sequence. And then we're able to come to a place where we can live our vocation. We can live the work that we were put on this earth to do. And when that's your vocation bubble, which is the first bubble in the Pearl sequence, and when you do that, when you're doing the work that you came here to do, prosperity is the natural outcome of that. So very much everything that human beings tend to want is yielded through walking this path. But at the same time, it is very much a matter of turning inward and looking at our shadows, and that can be painful territory. So as we go through this journey together, keep in mind that the soft animal body that is you, it can only take so much in one sitting. And that's why there's so many videos. That's why there's so many chunks to this process, because really one chunk at a time is going to stir up a lot inside of you. It's talking to your DNA. It's talking to every one of the trillions of cells that make up who you are. So the energy that is possible to unlock through contemplating your gene keys, it's big stuff. And as our body releases that energy and releases tension and floods our body with new light that we haven't experienced for, getting used to that can take some time. And we can make it a really rough ride for ourselves when we don't give ourselves the grace of having the time with it that we feel we need. So at any point, you don't even have to finish a whole chunk. If it unlocks a whole thing, take the thing, and that's the whole point. That's what the videos are here for, not to be a slave driver, like you have to consume all this content. It's just here to help stir energy in divine timing as you're ready for the next level of self-illumination, as you've processed the level before, and now you're feeling pretty grounded and pretty stable again. You're like, great, let's stir it up again, and you come back and watch the next little bit. So thank you so much for being here, for taking this journey with me. I am honored to be your guide, and I'll meet you on the next one.